Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind Keys. So in today's video, I want to drill down more in detail about these topics of psychedelics and self-regulation and the relationship between the two and why psychedelics may not be the optimal choice for yourself if what you're really needing is self-regulation. So let's go ahead and talk about it. And just real quick for anyone who might be new to the channel, just a warm hello and a welcome to the conversation here. Just for context, Mind Keys is a channel where we talk a lot about the intersection between psychedelics, this kind of self-healing path that a lot of people are on, spiritual awakening, personal development work, self-actualization work, and how all of these can go together, according to what I've learned and what I've studied. So that's really kind of the gist of the conversation here. Just a little context for you about myself. I'm a coach and a hypnotherapist, so I work with people around these topics of personal growth, personal healing, personal transformation in relationship to psychedelics. So if that's something you need or are interested in, then you're in the right place with this channel. And you're, of course, always welcome to contact me privately or personally if you need some sort of coaching or hypnotherapy or anything like that. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into the content for today's video. Okay, so in a recent video that I made, I'll probably leave a card up here above for you to check out if you want to. I kind of made the case that self-regulation is a separate skill from taking psychedelics and is very, very important. And I would argue personally fundamental to any personal healing path. So whatever issue you're trying to get over, if you are trying to address some sort of issue in your life, some sort of trauma, some sort of anxiety, stress, depression, a trigger, PTSD, whatever it is, really what you want at the foundation of any mental health protocol, and I can't believe this is not a universal yet, is self-regulation skills. So I kind of made that case, and I kind of mentioned that in the context that psychedelics are not self-regulation in and of themselves, and that you need to have a self-regulation toolkit in place, whether or not you're doing psychedelics, just for your day-to-day life. And I didn't really kind of go into detail about the relationship between the two, which is what I want to do here in this video. So there's a lot to say about this, but I'm going to try to be concise and on point and super clear about it for you so that you have a really nice, clear idea of why you want to start learning how to self-regulate. So the first thing I would say about it is this. Self-regulation is a toolkit for life that you can use no matter what state you're in. So, it's something that works with psychedelics. It's also something that works when you're sober. It's something that works when you are, having a great day, something that works when you're having a difficult day. It's just generally something you want to learn how to do no matter what scenario or what situation you're in. So it's something that transcends simply the kind of the work of psychedelics. As big and deep and profound as the world of psychedelics are and psychedelic healing is, I think that mastering the skill of working with our own nervous system to self-regulate supersedes that and is deeper even than psychedelics. So that's a big fucking thing to say because psychedelics are profound and super deep. So I hope you're getting the point here. This is something you want to have in place for the rest of your life, no matter where you go or what you do. Whether you're solo or with people, whatever the situation, you want to have the ability to self-regulate. So that would be point number one. Point number two is that when it comes to psychedelics and self-regulation, psychedelics are not ideal. And I'd like to explain to you why. So the way psychedelics work in the brain, they basically increase crosstalk amongst various regions of the brain that don't normally talk. So this is one of the big breakthroughs that came from the MRI imaging with LSD in the last 10 years. I don't know when the study was exactly, but one of the things they discovered is that when we take a psychedelic, part of what happens is the brain regions that normally kind of are very distinct and isolated and separate start to kind of crosstalk in all these new and different ways. So essentially what we have, a good metaphor for this that, if you've read, what was it? Michael Pollan's book is mentioned in there is kind of like a snow globe, shaking up a snow globe. Or you can think of it as like a fresh layer of powder for your brain in terms of snow. So if your brain is used to kind of these well-carved neural paths of, skiing down the slope in the same exact spot over and over and over every time you think a thought, as soon as you kind of take a psychedelic, it's like a new snowfall that covers all of those old neural paths, and you have the opportunity to wire your brain up in new ways. But part of what happens when we're having this kind of crosstalk is that essentially there's a lot of chaos in the brain. And I don't mean chaos in the scary, evil kind of implication of the word. What I just mean is that there's a lot of variability. There's a lot of new ways that the brain is operating when we're on a psychedelic. And so, because of that, part of what you get is all kinds of new thoughts that can arise. So, the way we tend to experience that kind of crosstalk is that we get new insights, we get new information, we see things in a different light. New things occur to us that have never occurred to us before, or often what happens is we connect to parts of ourselves that we really haven't been accessing or maybe didn't know were there, feelings that we didn't know we were carrying, old memories that we'd forgotten about, fears that maybe we haven't processed, sorrow that we haven't processed, joy that we haven't allowed to kind of be present in us. Like all these kinds of different experiences that we typically filter out kind of arise to the surface. So, so in terms of self-regulation, if what you want to do is be able to predictably pull yourself out of a triggered state, right? Out of fight or flight, or out of a PTSD flashback, or out of dissociation, or whatever it is you might be going through, and you want to bring yourself back to center and to relaxation and clarity and balance and feeling good and openness and, your attention outward and feeling safe in your own skin. The issue with psychedelics in that context is that psychedelics have this inherent chaos to them that I just described, right? So you can take a psychedelic and that chaos can unpack some profound beauty inside of you. And if it does, that's awesome. And I can teach you how to use that beauty to heal yourself and heal your life. But it can also, unpack fear, pain, sorrow, confusion, overwhelm, and just generally kind of blur the lines for you a lot more and make you a lot more impressionable. This is one of those things that I think a lot of people don't really factor in when they're excited about psychedelics and they're exploring. It's one of these messages that doesn't get out there enough to people who are in the psychedelic community, which is that psychedelics make you more impressionable. It's easier to wire in a fear response to your brain, or a healing response, or a joy response, or learn a new skill, or adapt an old skill, or transform something. All of this becomes much more possible because your brain is more malleable, it's more plastic, and it's more impressionable. So you are kind of, in a sense, more vulnerable, even if it's a microdose. I would say obviously more so on a higher dose, but even on a microdose, this is somewhat true. So when you're dealing with all of that chaos, right? More chaos in the brain, more ways that your thoughts and that your emotions can go. Well, that's often an exercise in beauty and its own teaching, which I'll speak about in a moment here. When it comes to the ability to feel better regularly and start to send your kind of deeper self, your inner child, if you will, or your, these parts of you that need soothing and need protection and need healing and need to feel safety and groundedness and openness in your own skin. If you're dealing with a chaos in your brain, it's going to be hard to really create that impression and that effect for yourself. So as much, again, as I love psychedelics, this is kind of the issue with using psychedelics to self-regulate. Basically, every time you take a psychedelic, to some degree, you're rolling the dice with your own state. And, what can come up can be, again, beautiful, but can also kind of be stressful or disorienting. And that's not really going to serve you in terms of regularly coming back to baseline, feeling good and feeling safe. That being said, if you know how to self-regulate and you get kind of triggered, or you have an emotion come up when you're on a psychedelic, or you get overwhelmed, or you get discombobulated, it's easier to, when you have the tool, know how to communicate with your nervous system to bring yourself back to a better centered place. So self-regulation is a tool that benefits psychedelics, but I don't think psychedelics always benefit self-regulation. Now, some of you might be watching this and, maybe you're new and you're on a really good roll with psychedelics. Maybe they've been treating you really well, or every time you take them, you have a really ecstatic, joyful time. I know I mostly do. And, and you're like, Dave, I don't know if this really kind of, gels for me, because I generally have an amazing time, which, if that's you, bravo. What I would say to that, though, is that another issue with psychedelics for self-regulation is that if you're living a kind of better living through chemistry model, what happens when you run out of the psychedelic, or you don't have access, or it's just kind of, you get the message, which happens for people, to stop taking them. or they're causing too many issues, like maybe you're getting too spaced out from taking them too often, or they're causing you to kind of develop an unhealthy set of attitudes that make you less adapted to the world. That can also happen. Things like this, right? What happens, when you're dependent on a psychedelic to self-regulate and then you can't use the psychedelic anymore, right? Like even if it works for you most of the time and better than meds, what happens when you can't use them for whatever reason? Then you're kind of SOL because you've been depending on a chemical or on a chemistry in the body to deliver a particular state to you. And believe me, I love it. I love the joy that comes from psychedelics. I love the openness and the playfulness and the wisdom and the feeling of energy and the feeling of clarity and inspiration and bliss and everything that comes out of it. It's crucial. And I think everyone should experience those states in whatever way they can get there. But I think that self-regulation is kind of more fundamental and more important, especially for this time, especially for all the crazy chaos going on in our world, and so I just kind of wanted to put that out there. Like what happens, when you're living better living through chemistry? I don't really think that's the way, to be honest. You can disagree. You certainly, can do whatever is right for your own nervous system and your own way of being. But in my experience, having taken a lot of psychedelics for a long time and known a lot of other people who do, I don't see that getting you the lasting result, of feeling good. It seems like what happens is that for people who use psychedelics to self-regulate, it's not that different really from smoking weed as an escapist mechanism, or even, kind of having a shitty week of working hard and then drinking on the weekends to cope and deal with the fact that you have a stressful life on the weekdays. It's not that different when you're swinging back and forth from pleasure states to stress states to pleasure states to stress states to pleasure states to stress states, right? That's not really unwinding the stress out of the system. That's not really retraining your brain how to be more in balance. That's not really learning how it feels when you just feel relaxed and chill and open in all kinds of different contexts of your life. So I would offer you, let's put it this way, I would offer you the idea, the notion that self-regulation is a toolkit that you're going to benefit whether or not you do psychedelics. And it's something you want to have in place for yourself, regardless of whether or not you're taking psychedelics for personal healing, personal growth, or anything like that. So what was the last point I want to make here? So the last point I want to make here is that when it comes to psychedelics and chaos, so this is a little bit of a divergence. I'm kind of digressing here away from kind of the core main point. But when it comes to psychedelics and chaos, I do want to say this because I think it's easy to hear, oh, psychedelics add more chaos to the brain, more chaos to the nervous system, and kind of come away with this impression of, God, I don't want that. God, that sounds scary. That sounds unhealthy or unsafe. I would offer you this, especially if you are someone who's prone to kind of control issues and kind of being really tense and tightly wound and stressed out when things become uncertain, which a lot of people are, especially if you have anxiety issues. I would offer you this. One of I think the deeper life lessons that psychedelics can really do for you and bring you is to teach you about chaos and how to navigate chaos and how to adapt to a changing system. So obviously when you take a full dose of a psychedelic, you go through a whole spectrum of states and emotions and thoughts and perspectives and feelings and ways of being. And that rainbow of different states and experiences is its own teaching about your nervous system and your capability to feel all these different ways and your capability to shift and change out of whatever it is you're feeling. And it's also a great kind of tool, a great way to learn about being adaptive to chaos, because your nervous system is kind of in this chaotic mode where it's sending you new information constantly, which is, I love personally. I think it's super valuable. But in that, you start to learn to adapt and, I'll be okay. Oh, I got sad for a while. I'll move through it. Or I got overwhelmed for a while. I'll move through it. Or I got really blissed out and I kind of just melted into the universe for a while. Oh, I'll move through that. Oh, I got into this really weird, strange state I'd never been in before. Oh, and then I came out of that. And you kind of just learn through experience, direct experience, which I think is super valuable and underrated and under-discussed, that you can adapt to chaos. that you can start to trust yourself to move through all these different states successfully. And I think that that's an important life lesson that translates across the board in your life. So you become better at adapting to all kinds of things. And this is a huge piece, especially for people who deal with anxiety and depression. A lot of times, part of what's going on with anxiety and depression is that we're not really that well adapted. We're kind of stuck in one mode too much, too often. And really our nervous system isn't as kind of supple and flexible and fluid as it could be, or maybe would be in a more optimal, healthy state. So that's, I think, an important lesson to take away from psychedelics about chaos. And so I don't want you to get the impression that chaos is necessarily a bad thing, necessarily unhealthy, necessarily dangerous or not fun for you. I think, a certain amount of chaos in the system is really good. It creates, it's like exercise. It's like if you don't get a full range of motion of all your joints and all your muscles, you kind of get stiff, you kind of get rigid, right? And that's kind of unhealthy for you. It's much more healthy when you're able to move your body in all kinds of different ways. If you follow guys like Ido Portal, you know what I'm talking about. So I think psychedelics offer something very similar for the brain and for the nervous system. And I think that's really what the chaos of psychedelics is. Okay, so kind of bringing this back around, and I'll wrap up the video here. So basically, when it comes to self-regulation, when it comes to feeling safe in your own skin, feeling good, feeling centered, feeling relaxed, knowing that you can bring yourself out of a triggered state whenever you need to, I think psychedelics can teach you things, but I don't think they're necessarily the best tool for the job. I think that the fundamental skill, and it's, again, this blows my mind. People are talking about it if you're looking at the right kind of fields, but if you don't know where to look, if you're just generally kind of into Jungian psychology or psychoanalysis, or, just learning about anxiety and CBT or depression, or you're just kind of generally trying to feel better and you're learning about supplements and all this other shit. There's all this other stuff that people know about, and they don't know about breath techniques or EFT or polyvagal theory and how to modulate your vagus nerve so that you feel better, or visualization and its impact on the nervous system, or all these other techniques that are so fucking important and useful for bringing you back to center. Why is it we don't all know how to bring ourselves back to center, and we're all going crazy? We're all stressed out and overwhelmed and overloaded, and doing drugs and drinking, and all spun out on all kinds of crazy ideas on the internet, but yet we don't know how to just come back to center. Like, isn't that bizarre? Doesn't that strike you as odd? That what should be the most obvious thing that we should all know, just like we all know how to feed ourselves, we all know how to go to the bathroom, we all know how to take a shower, we all know how to sleep, we all know how to do the basics of self-maintenance. But when it comes to our emotions and bringing our nervous system just back into, self-regulated states, back into the parasympathetic, all of a sudden people are stumped. It's like, oh my God, really? You mean I can not feel this way? Yes. And so I know this is a bit of a rant here, but it blows my mind. Anyways, I want to just kind of put that out there. That's why psychedelics, I think, aren't the best thing for self-regulation. There's too much of a chaos factor there. You need a little more consistency in terms of what happens. And so I really think that learning self-regulation tools is super crucial for you. Just a friendly reminder, in case I haven't been clear about that, I just launched a course about self-regulation for you. I built it for you. I built it for anyone who's kind of on this path of personal healing, dealing with anxiety, dealing with triggers, dealing with PTSD, and needs a set of tools to start to come back to center, let go of the triggers, let go of the stress, let go of the anxiety, and just kind of feel better. These are the fundamental tools that I generally teach people in the first session with me. So if you were to hire me as a coach, you're like, hypnotize me, help me get over my issues, help me clear my, depression. First thing I'm going to teach you is a bunch of tools to help you self-regulate so that when you come away from our session for the rest of the week, you already know how to take care of yourself and how to get out of whatever the problem is for you. So that's what this course is. I made it really short, really fast, really easy to follow. It's just a bunch of exercises that you follow along. You'll feel better right away, and you'll have tools for the rest of your life. You'll know exactly how to feel better, how to self-regulate, how to get back into that centered, clear, open, relaxed state that we all love to be in. So anyways, that's kind of my rant for now. Please, if you're interested in the self-regulation course, the link will be down below. I suggest you check it out. I suggest you consider, buying it, taking it. It will serve you for the rest of your life. But if not, I encourage you to start to learn about self-regulation, however you can find out about it. We'll be talking about it more on this channel because, again, it's so fundamental. It's so mind-boggling to me that people don't know more about it. So it's something that I feel like needs to be a part of the conversation, at least for a little while, so that anybody who's kind of entry level getting into psychedelics for personal healing, personal growth, you know where to go. Okay, anyways, that's all for now. Big love to all of you. Thanks for watching. And if you like this content, please consider subscribing and joining the community. It's growing really quick right now. And yeah, I'll see you in another video soon. Take care.